What's up, peeps? Straight Shootin LJA here, and welcome to another episode of the Straight Shootin View. Now, let's get right into the heart of the matter. Premier League, greedy, purely greedy. Pay-per-view Premier League is where I want to go with today's point. And you know what, yeah? The Premier League having pay-per-view matches for £14.95. Wow. I mean, I grew up in an era with kind of pro wrestling pay-per-view. And I remember in 2002 in this country when Sky Box Office started doing some of the big four events as pay-per-views for about the same price, actually, $14.95. The Royal Rumble in 2002, I remember, was pay-per-view. I think you had Vengeance and a couple of the other B shows that year as well, which were pay-per-view. Now, that's obviously not new in the wrestling world. Pay-per-view has been around for 20, 30 years. But with football, there are already subscription-based services and a lot of them, and they are not cheap. Sky Sports, BT Sport, they are not cheap. And the funny thing about Premier League pay-per-view is it's not even a new thing. I don't know if you guys remember Sky Sports Prem Plus. That used to be like £5 a game, and I think that was in like 05, 06. So it's said it's not a new thing, but it's the timing of this particular one. Now, we're still in the coronavirus pandemic. It's still October of 2020. Don't mean to date this vlog, but I wanted to for context. But the Premier League, once again, is showing its greed. And the TV companies, as I said a few months ago in regards to the Premier League returning, is it money over health? The TV companies obviously want their money. If they paid, what, 4.45 billion plus, because Amazon didn't reveal what they paid 4.45 billion plus for the latest round of TV rights, which we're in, I think, the second season of now. And obviously the pandemic, with games being shown free to air and that kind of thing, I've always said it's not a benevolent gesture, and see one of my previous vlogs about the fact that this is not a benevolent gesture. It wasn't. It's like they don't want people to forget that the subscription-based services are there. So it's like, offer them, dangle them a little carrot, and see what people go for. Because we want people to think we're a nice organisation, like Sky Sports BT. Oh, we want people to think we're nice, we're being generous during this pandemic, so that we still retain their custom once everything is back to normal, or some semblance of normality. But you know what, yeah? This whole thing really, really irks me about the Premier League trying to do pay-per-view football again. I didn't like the Prem Plus idea. Back in the day, I didn't like that idea, but it's even worse now, because you're seeing, number one, you're seeing millions of people losing their jobs after the furlough scheme. The first wave of the furlough scheme ended in August, and this month, October, when the furlough scheme fully ends, you are going to see a lot more people losing their jobs, and belts are already going to be tightened enough in the run up to Christmas this year. Christmas 2020 is going to be a tough one for a hell of a lot of people. So the Premier League deciding now is the time to release whatever games they're not showing, they're not broadcasting already. So that's already second string games. Offering them on a pay-per-view basis is an utter disgrace, and doing it for $14.95 is even more of a disgrace. Why the hell am I going to want to watch a game that wasn't picked up for broadcast? Why am I going to want to pay $14.95 for that? Thank you, Premier League, for the encouragement to go to illegal streams. I know a few of those sites, and I'm not going to tell. But the thing is, it is definitely going to drive people to illegal streams. And personally, I see a major irony in that, but I can't go into details about that. But the way the Premier League has always gone after people. And in one of the early Pitch Talk shows back in 2010, we talked about a woman in Portsmouth with a Greek decoder who was showing Premier League games. And she won her case against the Premier League. I think she might have lost the appeal, but she won her case against the Premier League to be able to show games. So that was technically an illegal stream back then. So it's one of them where it's like you're gonna drive people to do more of that. Also, pubs showing matches as well. Well, you wanna try. The government wants to try and manage how many people are in pubs and doing this 10 o'clock curfew thing. But you notice how quick the Premier League were to come out and say, "Oh, yeah, the 10 o'clock curfew. Okay, let's move these games back." And it's like, oh, okay, so you can do that quickly. Okay, cool. Because I think Liverpool Arsenal was slated to be an 8:15 kickoff, and then they moved it back because they realised, and it was put around in memes. Oh, imagine how furious Liverpool and Arsenal fans are going to be when the pub has to shut on 80 minutes. And it's like, that's actually a very good point. But you see how the Premier League can maneuver when it wants to. That's the thing. And throughout this pandemic, I've said that certain companies have been very quick to pivot and maneuver because they've had to. They've seen, oh my God, we can make more money there. Yeah, let's do it. Let's move. Supermarkets, especially bad for it. But that's another topic for another time. But I look at the Premier League. I've always said that the league is based on greed. On Pitch Talk live shows, I've always said it. Look at Ferran Soriano's recent comments, again, about Premier League B teams being introduced into the Football League pyramid. We discussed this on Pitch Talk Live in 2012 and also in 2014 as a special feature when the FA came out with a 4-point plan and had just that idea as part of their 4-point plan. They actually had the potential of Premier League B teams, and it's like, no. So it's like every few years that seems to get brought up, but all that would do is create an even more closed shop, as if it's not closed off enough already, and it will ring fence even more money for those 20 sides in the Premier League. But then the Football League has 72 sides. Like, no. They already get the shaft in regards to the television deals as it is, because their deal's only worth about 800 mil. And stuff like initiatives such as iFollow and that kind of thing, I'm with that. That's cool because clubs get a nice little kickback from that in the Championship, League One and League Two. They get a nice kickback. We got to keep the so-called bottom of the pyramid strong. And where this irks me as well is that the Premier League can do this whole pay-per-view thing. That you had Richard Masters and the Premier League powers that be complaining, oh, well, the Premier League during this pandemic, oh, it's going to lose 700 million quid. But then during this last transfer window, that's just closed. You've had clubs spending what, £1.25 billion, and it's like, I think Chelsea were responsible for like nearly 300 million of that on their own, and their pre-tax, I think they made like a pre-tax loss for 2018-19 of over 100 million, closely followed by Everton. So it's like these clubs spending big, even during a pandemic where the league itself has been complaining, oh, we're losing money, we're losing this, the Premier League has to come back, otherwise we're going to lose all this money. But then your clubs are spending so much, but you look at their pre-tax profits and losses, a lot of those clubs are just about making a little bit of profit, or they're losing a shed load. And it's like, you wonder why people think the Premier League's greedy. But for me, one of the worst things is not even just the Premier League, not even just the clubs, but then you wrote the FA in on this as well, because you look at them shutting down futsal. Futsal and the women's team, done. Futsal has literally been shut down because of the pandemic. And it's like, oh, all right, we can't let fans back into the stadiums. What's the first area we start cutting? All right, we can cut a few jobs at head office. But what are we going to do? We're going to cut £22 million from grassroots football. What the grassroots football is very close to my heart. I still play for the Ibis Eagles, formerly Ibis FC and BB Eagles FC separately. But it pains me and it frustrates the hell out of me when I see the top level of the game And these clubs who look at what Man City got in trouble for recently, and they had to go to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. They were fiddling their numbers. They were fiddling their books, and the Court of Arbitration for Sport somehow ruled that, nah, it's all right. Don't worry about it. You broke the rules, but you only broke them in principle. Don't worry about it. It's like, what? No. It's like, financial fair play has not been fit for purpose since Michel Platini withdrew, and we said this on Pitch Talk shows as well, where he withdrew their biggest bargaining chip. Oh, we're not looking to throw teams out of tournaments because of financial fair play breaches. It's like, no, don't tell them that. Because now you get the position that we're in, that clubs are just breaking it willy-nilly, and if they're big enough and if they can pay enough, then they can get away with it. And that disparity annoys the hell out of me when the Premier League comes out with sob stories like, oh, we're going to lose all this money. We need to get the league back on track. We need to this. And then then you got the FA, the governing body, going, oh, well, we've got to cut £22 million a year from grassroots football. And remember, the Premier League, in the previous deal, was mentioned on Pitch Talk shows, £5.136 billion was the previous TV deal, and yet grassroots football, as an all-encompassing term, was only getting 260 million of that money, and that was broken out over 3 goddamn years. And I've gone into the rudiments of how stupid that is and how little amount that is. But the thing is, you got the Premier League trying to do this pay-per-view gimmick, and then you go down to the National League, they're having to rely on government bailouts just to start their goddamn season. And I'm not even joking, just to start their season in the National League, they've had to rely on a government bailout. Do you know how much of a disgrace that is? That they're having to rely on this circus of a Tory government. See the Straight Shootin rants for more of me burying the government, because I'm not going to do it here and get too political. But the fact that football, that the top level of the game is so selfish, all it would take, and it's been said recently by I think one of the owners or chairman of one of the National League clubs, all it would take is £22 million from each Premier League club to keep the National League alive. 22 million. Liverpool spent 27 on Thiago. You look at certain other teams are spending 50 million on one player. Harry Maguire, 80 million. And it's like, wow. 22 million from each side just to keep the Vanarama National League, just to keep the National League there and to help it stay in existence. But yet they've had to, it's just one of them where also as well, there have been recent meetings talking about the Premier League. Oh yeah, like the EFL saying, yeah, can we have a bit of help here? Because fans not coming into stadiums, fans not being allowed into stadiums because of the ever-changing coronavirus pandemic and the rising cases. Again, I'm not going to get too political. That's for the Straight Shootin rants. But it's one of them there was supposed to be fans starting to be drip fed back into stadiums from October 1st, but that's changed now. So a lot of EFL clubs are going to start going potentially belly up. Macclesfield, a recent example where they've been wound up recently because of debts, and this pandemic has not helped, because there's no money coming through the turnstiles. See, the big 20 in the Premier League, with the amount of money they're making, especially off TV deals, they can afford to not have fans. That's why this pay-per-view thing is a goddamn slap in the face. $14.95, and that's per game. That's not for a subscription service where you get every game in a season like iFollow in the EFL. It's not like that. It's not like that at all. It's $14.95 per game. So they're mocking. The Premier League is an absolute disgrace for letting that kind of crap happen. It's like, no. If anything, you should be offering those games for free. Number one, because they ain't marquee games. And number two, fans can't come to stadiums. It's bad enough that ticket prices were high enough. Remember a few years ago where Arsenal were doing like 62 quid for a home game ticket. I think it was Man City v Arsenal as it happened. That was a 62 quid game. And it's like, you're charging that much to go and see the game live. Now, People they haven't even got the choice of watching the game live in person, and now you're trying to extort people who are already paying an arm and a leg for BT and Sky Sports subscriptions. And I know some prat is going to be like, oh, well, it's your choice at the end of the day. It's like, yes, it is a choice. But I said, during this coronavirus pandemic, a lot more people are at home a lot more often. And if there's more lockdowns, then people are going to need something to be entertained. Because the mental health in the status of people's mental health in this country has deteriorated. It's been proven, has deteriorated during this pandemic. People are scared, people are worried, people need a bit of escapism, and sport can provide that. So why the hell are you extorting people for that privilege of being able to watch live sport? See, it dovetails into so many other things where people think it's just simply about pay-per-view. You're basically extorting people, and it's an absolute disgrace that the Premier League thinks it's appropriate now to do it. And it frustrates the hell out of me. And as I said, the Premier League is built on greed. Built on greed. Just like UEFA, just like FIFA, who are supposed to be a non-profit organisation but sitting on billions of pounds of cash reserves. This is the game we love at the top bloody level. That's why I love grassroots football. I love amateur league football. But it's one of them, man. I want to know your views. Comment section is down there. Down where? Down there. At Pitch Talk on Twitter. Tweet with us, follow us, see what we're up to. Facebook.com/Pitch Talk. Join the group. Join the fan page as well. Become a fan, become a friend, become a member of the group. See what we're up to. Also, Instagram, at Pitch Talk on Instagram as well. We got videos up there and on IGTV as well. Comment section is below. I have been Straight Shootin LJA. Let me do that again. I have been Straight Shootin LJA, your resident Copite and Liverpool supporter, of course, on Pitch Talk. Shout outs to the G-Man, Jezzy Fizzle, Nath Arsenal, and JBK as well. More Pitch Talk vlogs are coming your way soon. Once again, I've been Straight Shootin LJA, and until next time, comment section is below. Let me know your views on the Premier League trying to fleece the people with pay-per-view football. Let me know your views. See you next time, people. Thanks for your time.